Welcome to another Full Force Combat MMA podcast. We are proudly sponsored by Hez Boxing Equipment, as usual. We're just going to briefly look at Rhys McKee's first win in the UFC and a stunning performance by the main man in the main event, Mr. Lerone Murphy, Manchester's own. Rhys McKee, we'll start there. Before we get into Lerone and go in depth there, we'll start with Rhys McKee's first win in the UFC, boys. First win in 5. And he gets the 50 grand bonus as well. It was a dominant performance, weren't it? Just it only lasted the one round, but made like work of Frunze, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a good fight to watch, good fun fight. He dropped fucking Frunze like 3 times in the first round. The state of Frunze's eye. He was showing heart though, he was giving it him back, especially towards the end of the round. Got it stopped, doctor stoppaged. Rhys McKee walks away with a performance bonus, so fair play to him. It was a fucking good fight to watch.
Yeah, happy for McKee. It's a good win against a guy that, to be fair, out of all these UFC fights, was probably the biggest. Not a layup, but the one you expect him to actually beat if he was to prove he was UFC worthy. Obviously, he's had his fair share, as we touched on last episode. He's had his fair share of tough fights in the UFC. He's really had to go through it, and he's bounced back, come back with a win as well. And so happy for him. And now it's about same old. It's about kicking on and getting a consistent run of wins.
Absolutely. I think he was taking risks that he didn't need to, but he smelt blood, didn't he? So he just threw the kitchen sink at Frunze. But as Nathan said, the matchmaking with him, he got through into the deep end, into the Shark Tank very early on. But I'm happy to see him get a win now. So now what's the next stage? Did they have to do it carefully now? Try and build another Irish star, because the potential is there, isn't it?
Yeah. To be honest, I was having a good think about other welterweights who have been on a bit of a mad sort of run, and I think a Li Jingliang fight would be all right, because I think he's like 1 win, 3 losses or something in his last 4. So the matchmaking would make sense. Li Jingliang's pretty well known to the world as well, like especially when that's the suit thing went down, when his fight got cancelled, and he had to fight Daniel Rodriguez, and he couldn't go to the press conference in his suit, and people felt quite sorry for him. If you remember all that shit going on, but yeah, I think it'd be a good fight, and if Rhys McKee could beat him, he gets a bit of name power off it, because a lot of people know Li Jingliang, but his run's not necessarily been the best either. So the matchmaking would make sense. He beats him, gets a bit of reputation off that. You laughing?
No, I like it. It's a very good shout. But yeah, big up Rhys McKee, Ireland's own, getting a 50 grand bonus in his first win in 5 in the UFC. But moving on to Manchester's own Lerone Murphy. Now, we said in the preview that it's going to be probably a very technical performance by Lerone, and it proved so, didn't it? I think he controlled the distance. Some rounds were close, but I feel like he controlled most of the distance, Lerone. And even when Emmett wanted to get in close, I don't think Emmett still wanted to take that extra little bit of risk. Even there was a moment once in the 5th, and he unloaded a couple of times, and it was probably Emmett's cleanest combination, and then he shot for a takedown, weird enough. So that just proves what I'm saying. I don't think he really wanted to take that risk, because he knew Lerone was controlling the distance. He mocked him during round 5, Emmett, like running away like that towards him, like you're running away, but that wasn't the case. It was just that Lerone had controlled the distance, so Emmett wasn't allowed to come inside and throw them overhand rights, and there was limited from Emmett. The overhand rights was limited. There was still some punches landed, but at the end of the day, it was from where I'm sitting, it was a clinic from Lerone Murphy in many ways.
Yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, it was a clear win for Murphy. It wasn't every round for him. You probably have it 3-2, 4-1, but it was a really good performance against probably the gatekeeper of featherweight in that division. Emmett is as tough as they come, and as we said in the preview, that it was highly unlikely to be a finish, and unfortunately for Lerone, he didn't get one. And it went as expected, a 25-minute decision, which again, it's not bad. It's not. It's still a win. This is a sport at the end of the day, and he won the fight, and he won it convincingly, which is what matters in a sporting context. it's not the fight that's gonna launch him to title start, to stardom or to a title fight. But I think he called it perfectly in terms of who he wants next. We might get into that. But Alex, what did you make of the fight?
Yeah, I thought it was a clear Lerone Murphy win. The only round what I thought was quite close was maybe the first round. I think maybe you could have leaned that towards Josh Emmett. I've just whipped up the stats here just for double checking. Significant strikes, bang on, 10 for 10. To be fair, Josh Emmett scoring the takedowns, but he was getting back up every time. It's not like he wasn't holding him down. He was standing straight back up. He had an answer for him when there was close in kind of the clinch and close range. Lerone caught him with a big fucking sneaky elbow, gashed his head in the first round. Yeah, I was quite impressed, to be fair. It was a good fight to watch. He stuffed the takedowns, got straight back up, and when you mentioned before about Emmett throwing some strikes back, I noticed he did a very good job of the covering up. Even though Josh Emmett was throwing stuff, none of it really seems to be getting through his tight guard, which I thought was quite good, to be honest. So yeah, great fight, and he's moving up to rank 8 or 7. If he takes Josh Emmett's, is moving up to 8. But just looking at the guys above him, you've got Arnold Allen, all British battle. That'd be fucking great for UK MMA. A Brian Ortega fight, which would give him a name, a good well-known name in the MMA community, or maybe even the loser/winner of Yair Rodriguez and Pitbull coming up on this weekend's card. So yeah, a lot of options for him. So yeah, excited to see what's next.
Absolutely. I was just really impressed with how mature it was, and it was a lot of work from Lerone, was a lot of the feints which is leading up to it. And if you ever watch how the way the head coach at Manchester top team, Carl Prince, works, you've got to lead him in with the feints. He's one of the best striking coaches in the world, and I think Lerone mastered that on Saturday. And when he did throw the kicks, they were pinpoint. He was hurting him, and that's Lerone's still fresh, and the only damage he's got is a ballooned right leg because of said kicks. I'm just thinking now in terms of what's next. Could we see the old British fight with Arnold Allen? Maybe the winner of Pitbull and Rodriguez this weekend. But selfishly, I'd want him to go in with the boys in the title fight, Volkanovski and Lopes. That's me being selfish as a Mancunian. I think Lerone's at the level, I think technical ability wise, I think if you look at the last 2 main eventers who he's been in with, he's done 25 minutes each with 2 absolute killers on the day, and he's mastered a professional performance against both. He's looked fantastic. He's took limited risk, even with the Ige fight. I know he was a bit warm for that. You could tell he was tired, and he did say that afterwards. But he still managed to pull through. But it's always professional performance from Lerone, and he's not been shoved in people's faces. He's not exactly been over promoted. He's kind of done it not the hard way, but he's done it the proper way. He's gone through the rankings. He's done several fights in Abu Dhabi, and he's done a fair few in the Apex now. So, yeah, as I said, selfishly, as a Mancunian, give the boy his fucking shot. Give him the winner of Volkanovski and Diego Lopes this weekend. Why not, man? Why not? Throw him in. Lerone will tell you himself he's ready. Lerone will tell you himself he's ready.
I mean, I love it. I love the optimism and the enthusiasm for Lerone. I think he's called it right with the Ortega fight. I think Lerone, that's the fight Lerone wants. Obviously, I assume if he got the title shot, give me Brian Ortega first. I assume he'd want the title shot, but I think the Ortega fight. Let's get Lerone in front of a crowd. That's the main thing. None of this Apex stuff. Let's get him in front of a big crowd. Let's put him on a main card, co-main if you want, of a big fight night, or even just on the main card of a pay-per-view. But I think it's time we get this guy at the Apex. He deserves better. Let's get him on a main card and let's let everyone see what he's about, because not everyone watches these Apex events. Let's be honest, they've lost a lot of favour, as we probably spoke about a billion times on here. But let's get Lerone on a big card against Ortega, against Arnold Allen. I think you could even do that. Unfortunately, probably be the loser of the the Pitbull Rodriguez fight, because I feel like the winner of that is the guy that's going to be the next in line for Volk or Lopes, depending on who wins on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's the case as well. But as I said, selfishly, and the fact that Lerone's already done 2 5-round main events. So is he going to have to do another 5? Is he going to have to do 3 5-round main events before he gets a title shot? Come on. This is what I mean. Let him have the title shot next. He's done 2 5-round main events. Do you know? I think I'm all for it, me. But yeah, the Ortega fight, then that's like another eliminator, isn't it? So you could give the Pitbull, because I think they think in the UFC's mind they want Pitbull to win, so then they've got the title shot, because they like the Bellator thing as well. You know what I mean? That's what they want. That's what they was hoping for with Chandler. It didn't really work out, however. So that's ideally for them. So the Ortega Murphy fight, excuse me, that'd be like another eliminator. I'd go for that as well. But like I said, selfishly, give him the winner on Saturday.
Well, let's not mess around. Let's talk Saturday. Let's talk about this fight, the potential for Lerone Murphy's next opponent if Dan gets his way. Alexander Volkanovski, Diego Lopes. I mean, this is Diego Lopes. I mean, Lerone Murphy himself said if he wants to do the title, get that title shot the same way Diego Lopes did. He's worked so hard for it. But is it a step too far against Volkanovski, or is Volkanovski going to show that he might actually be a bit past it and not at that level that, you know, personally, selfishly as a fan, I wish he was still at, or will he say, no, you must have forgot, I'm still the best featherweight in the world? Dan, what are you making of this one?
I think it's going to be very interesting because he needed that breakout. We've discussed this before on this podcast where he needed that breakout, and I think this year could be the best thing for him, or it could be the worst thing for him. With Volkanovski, I think he's a very, very professional athlete, and he's one of the greatest featherweights that we've seen. And I think he's just going to come out and we'll see that raw, gritty, old school Volkanovski, and he's going to put everyone back on notice and remind everyone that he's still there. I think when you're at the top of the tree line and you've done so many camps, especially when he jumped up and down weights and dared to be great, it can have an effect on your body. So I think it only points to positives for me, this break. So yeah, I'm as a Volk fan, I'm hoping. And I'm hoping and I'm thinking as well, it is likely to happen. However, Lopes does bring a lot of dangers himself, which I'm sure we'll discuss as we go on. But he's earned his opportunity the right way, like as you've just touched on there, Nathan. He's earned his opportunity the right way, and he's a very, very likable character. So I'd be very upset if Volk lost, but I'd be very happy.
Yeah.
With it being Lopes, because he's a likable guy and his style, it's fan friendly. So yeah, where do you sit, Alex?
Yeah, no, I'd proper agree with you there, mate. I want Volkanovski to win. I'm a massive Volkanovski fan. But I wouldn't really be too hard if Diego Lopes won, because he's had some proper scraps on his way to this belt. So if he did win it, it would be well earned it'd be just as well earned. And I don't know. It's one of them. I see Volkanovski schooling him a little bit towards the start, but I'm just wondering, is Diego Lopes going to fucking spark him out in the second round, and then I'm going to be heartbroken? You know that's what's looming over me, because it's a possibility. So yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, both these guys are so tough. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if with Volkanovski, obviously, maybe questions over his chin after the Topuria fight, but I mean, it's Ilia Topuria though, isn't it? So it's a bit different. You have to account for that. That's someone with crazy power at that weight. Diego Lopes is literally as game as they come. He's been around. He's been in the UFC, out the UFC, came back, lost his first fight everywhere, but then you just knew he was a really good fighter from that everywhere fight, because he was with him all the way, and that's someone that a lot of people have struggled with. And then he's bounced back 5 wins in a row? Yeah, 5 wins in a row. Ige, Ortega, both decision wins, which show maybe at that top level the finishing power isn't quite there, which could benefit Volkanovski in all honesty, because I would say he's the more skilled fighter, the more technically skilled fighter. And again, sort of those parallels to the last main event, but Lopes isn't exactly Emmett in terms of the big power punches and things like that, but he is still a super game fighter. And it could almost seem like, I don't really want to compare him because it's a different style, but it's almost like that Bilal Muhammad in terms of if he just grits his teeth, does the basics right, then he could win this fight. I think it's going to be a decision win for whoever does it. And while the fan in me is backing Volkanovski, you can, in MMA, you've been scarred too many times watching your favorite sort of. You feel like they're going to do it this time, and they don't quite do it. So I think Volkanovski's going to win, but I definitely think it's going to be a decision. There is a really good chance that Lopes just gets down on the mouthpiece and grinds out a decision win in a fun way, not in a boring way. They're going to go for it. It's going to be a war, but there is every chance that we leave with Diego Lopes as the new UFC featherweight champion. I think that's where I'm leaning in terms of. I'm not leaning that way. I'm leaning Volkanovski's skill, but I worry it's the fan in me rather than the thinker. Rather than I'm speaking with my heart, not my head. I'll say Volkanovski decision, but with a sort of look to maybe a quid on Lopes as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm like 70-30 swaying to Volkanovski. But if Lopes wins, because Ilia Topuria has now vacated his championship, he was 27 years of age. He was the youngest UFC champion. If Lopes wins, Lopes is only 30. He will then be the youngest champion in the UFC. Topuria was the only champion under the age of 30. So it'd be kind of like a new era. It'd be a passing of the guard. But we're all clinging on here, right? We're hoping that Volk Volk can come out after, like I said, boys, after this year out, it could be the best thing for him. Because if you look at his losses as well, they're not to no fucking mugs. The elite guys, you know what I mean? The
best fighters in
come on. So yeah, it's majorly excited for this main event. Huge card in Miami, supported by none other than Michael Chandler and Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. What a matchup this is. For Chandler, I think it's do or die. I really do think it's do or die. This for Paddy, it's the real breakout fight. I know he performed last year in Manchester. However, Bobby King Green, or whatever the fuck he wants to go as now, isn't a Michael Chandler, isn't a Charles Oliveira. With all due respect, this is of that ilk now for Paddy, a big fight to say like, right, I can mix it with these guys now. What's next? Oliveira next, something like
that. Yeah, big time. I've seen a lot of Americans going heavily towards Michael Chandler, but I find it very hard to pick Michael Chandler in a fight in the UFC. I think, don't get me wrong, it's not like he's a shithouse and he's a bum. He's one of the best lightweights in the world, but I see Paddy finishing him, to be honest. But yeah, I'm fucking buzzing for this fight, to be honest.
I think that the fight will be if Chandler can take him into these deep waters, into this is a 5-round fight, and we saw Chandler. I mean, he was getting battered by Oliveira, and then all of a sudden, when you thought it was just finished and it was going to just sort of peter out into a decision win, all of a sudden he's going to win the fight. Oh God, Chandler's going to do it. He's going to beat Oliveira, and that might happen here because again, we spoke about it last week. Chandler's got that right hand. He's got so much power in that as well, and it's what he puts all his stock into it when he's on his feet. Yeah. He really believes in it, and Paddy has shown before that he can get caught, he can get touched in the UFC. He says Scousers don't get knocked out, and as a fan, I'm hoping he's right. But if anyone's going to do it, would be Michael Chandler because he just has that power. So if he can take Paddy into those deep waters, and Paddy's no newcomer to 25 minutes and go in those big main event fights. But it's just different when you're up against someone on the level of Michael Chandler. It's not like you're doing 25 minutes with as good as they are guys in Cage Warriors and guys in that stage of their career. This is a guy who's been there, done it. He's fought the biggest guys to fight. He might not be the best fighter ever, but he's certainly up there in terms of skill in the UFC. So this is going to be a really tricky fight. I back Paddy to win, and on the ground it's tough because obviously Michael's got that wrestling and he's so that's actually his strength. If you look at him as a fighter, he prefers to stand up and use that striking and that crazy chin that he has, but his strength is on the ground. So I'm intrigued to see how it plays out. It's tough to call. I back Paddy, but I'm at the same time not actually sure what the finish is going to be because there's every chance that Michael Chandler survives on the feet. On the ground he can survive. probably decision win if I'm being cautious to Paddy. I think that's probably where I'm going with this. But this is a fight that could end at any moment either way. So that's going to be the actual excitement of the fight rather than the action, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think in terms of, you're right about Chandler's power. But as we said, his main attribute is his wrestling. So if you look at it from his side, so can he land on Paddy, or can it overpower him with his wrestling game? In terms of the wrestling game, I don't think so. Paddy's a black belt jiu-jitsu, and he is fast. He is fast at it. He's unbelievably quick, and he's a big lightweight, Paddy, as well. He is a huge lightweight, where Chandler's kind of stocky. Paddy's more taller. He's a bit more stretched out, where Chandler's filled out a little bit, and Paddy's a lot quicker. I'm just a bit wary of, has Paddy got the punching power to knock him out? Maybe not. Maybe he could stop him if he puts his foot on the gas and he has him hurt with 1 or 2, and then he can put his foot on and then he can get him stopped. Maybe, but I don't see Paddy knocking him out with no one punch. I've never seen it, so I'm not leaning towards that. If I'm leaning towards anything, I think Paddy will stop him. I think he'll get on his back or on his neck or something like that. I think Chandler's prone to making mistakes.
Yeah.
And like I said, Paddy's quick. Paddy is quick, and I think he'll capitalise. I think that's my shout for Saturday. I'm really excited for it because, like we said, they both like to fight as well. Paddy wants to knock him out. He wants to try and knock him out. So it's very, very interesting for where this fight will actually go. There's a lot of ways it can go. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah. Just to touch on what you're saying there, with Michael Chandler, he is fun to watch. He brings the heat, like as you were saying. Like one of my favorite UFC fights was him and Dustin Poirier on the Adesanya Pereira card, one card, and I think and yeah. I've lost my head, but I can't get my words out.
We can tell that Alex. We can tell that Alex is really excited for this one. He's really excited for this one. Now I'm really excited for the next matchup. One of everybody's favorite fighters at the minute, another one of the fighting nerds bunch, John Silver, is a highlight reel. He's a machine, and he's fighting someone who's not a very popular fella at the minute in the MMA stratosphere, in Mr. Bryce Mitchell, who most recently, to my mind, I don't know if he's been out since was knocked out by Josh Emmett around this time last year. Yeah. So this just points to all directions to John Silver, don't it? John Silver this fight is made for John Silver to look spectacular again.
Hope so. Yeah. He obviously had that. Bryce has come back, had that setup fight with Cron Gracie. That was, sort of, white to Mitchell. It's one of those ones. You got the same views in that. So I expect it. I'm obviously rooting for John Silver. My personal view, and might not be popular for I don't think Mitchell should be fighting in UFC after the stuff he said. I think in any other line of work, you'd be booted out for stuff like that. I know it's a fighting game, and you can do what you want, but what he said was just insane. But we won't talk too much on that. But yeah, hopefully John Silver just does it here, and it would be a fantastic win for him. And if you're going to play into the sort of, I can't think of the right word, but the sort of type of thing that happens in fighting, you can get away with stuff that you wouldn't get away with in other walks of any professional sport. You can get away with doing a madness here, and so with that, you do have the capability of knocking the bad guy out, and really showing everyone that you say stupid stuff, and there'll be consequences for that. So I'll be rooting for John Silver. I'll make no mistake of that. I mean, Bryce Mitchell is a good fighter. I'm not going to sit here and act like he's not, and it will be a tough fight, especially if he can get it to the ground. But Silver, he's just so powerful, and this is the biggest test of his career for Silver. So I'm intrigued to see how it goes, and obviously rooting for him to get it done.
Yeah, on a bit of a lighter note, on the build-up, when they had the press conference for the pay-per-view a few weeks back, and Bryce and Gene Silver was on the microphone. Gene Silver started barking like a dog, and Bryce is calling him a demon and all this, and he's got to slay him in God's name. But yeah, so Bryce is going to be fucking fighting some demons, mate, on Saturday, on Saturday night. So yeah, fighting is yeah, but yeah, he said some sticky stuff in, mate. You're stepping on landmines talking about him, so let's move on quickly.
Yeah, but it is the toughest test of Silva's career to date.
Yeah,
and I just hope the fighting nerds can keep this amazing run going, because I love that gym at the minute. One that I am gutted that's not on the card, but we'll speak about this a bit later on, in Carlos Prates and Jeff Neal. But the next fight down, involving another Brazilian, not a fighting nerds fighter, but another Brazilian who's making his UFC debut. We've been gassed for this for a long time because we asked for it. The MMA gods must have listened. Patricio Pitbull makes his UFC debut, baby, this Saturday night, and he's facing Yair Rodriguez, who's ranked number 5. Big implications on this title fight. Nathan, take it away.
Yeah, this is big. This is a great fight. The winner of this fights for the belt, in my opinion. And Patricio Pitbull is an MMA legend. He is the name you think of when you think of Bellator. He's one of the greatest featherweight fighters of all time, possibly one of the greatest sort of under 170 fighters of all time. He's a real legend. And to be fair, he's probably on the other end of his career at the moment. If we're being honest, he's had an awful lot of fights, and he dropped 2 decisions. He actually got knocked out or got stopped, in his last fight before the Jeremy Kennedy one, where he came back with a win. But if we're being honest, Pitbull is not at the peak of his powers, but Yair Rodriguez is probably in that same boat. I mean, it sounds crazy to say about someone that's quite young, but he's probably in a stage of his career where he is over the hill, in the sense of he's just been in so many wars that it started to take its toll on him, but he still looks really good. I mean, I remember that Max Holloway fight. That's a few fights ago now, and he's on a 2-fight skid at the moment. Volkanovski and Ortega. But again, you're not losing to bums. I would say that Rodriguez's losses are better than Pitbull's losses, recent losses. Pitbull's losing in against Sergio Pettis, and he's losing in Ryzen. That's different to losing to the champ, and potentially the champ again, and then Ortega as well, who we all know is a super skilled fighter. So it's an interesting one in terms of where they're at. What you will expect and you will get is just an on-the-feet war. I think these guys are going to go after it. Pitbull is a technically more skilled fighter, but Rodriguez is more powerful. That being said, Pitbull has shown great power. He knocked out Michael Chandler some years ago, and that's a guy above his weight class. And we know how good he is. And it's a really tough one to call. I'm rooting for Pitbull, but I really wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about a Yair Rodriguez knockout win on next Monday when we do this. So I think it's going to be a really good fight, and that's probably the best thing to say about it.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there completely, Nathan. Another fun fight on the main card, another treat for the MMA community. As you mentioned before, Patricio Pitbull's last few fights haven't kind of been the best for him. I know he won his last one against the Jeremy Kennedy fight, and watched that back. It was kind of a bit stale up until the 3rd round when he picked up the pace a bit and got the finish. And I think Yair Rodriguez is just going to be a bit too chaotic for him. He's great at throwing kick combinations, like a front kick and then a fucking body kick and then a question mark kick, and then he's constantly bouncing but moving around. You're stepping in and out, and the last few fights I've saw from Patricio Pitbull, he's been quite still and quite stationary and quite patient, and I think that's just going to play into Rodriguez bouncing around and and just causing loads of chaos. So but I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking a Rodriguez TKO or who knows, Patricio Pitbull just might even try to take him down, and that's always a possibility.
I think where I sit on it is, I think Pitbull's going to have to try and come out fast.
Yeah.
Do something fast. However, that will leave him open to making mistakes. So he might sit on the back foot a little bit first. It might be cagey at first, and he's been out of the cage for a year. But he's also going to want to impress on his UFC debut. So he wants to make a statement. He's being thrown in the deep end. He's not been given just someone just on the border of the rankings. They want to give this guy a fucking title fight.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they want to do with Pitbull. He's 43 fights into his career. He's 37 years of age. There's no messing about with him. It's a similar sort of thing with Michael Venom Page. They've given him good fights. If he would have beat Ian Garrett, he would have been Michael Venom Page might have been 1 or 2 in line for a title shot. He would have fought Shavkat next because that's what happened with Ian Garrett. You know.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a similar path, isn't it? This is what they like to do with the ex-Bellator fighters, so it's a big fuck you to them. That's what Dana likes to do, doesn't he? He likes to take their best stars and put them at the top. It's like the upcoming Aaron Pico fight, which we'll touch on in a couple of moments' time. But I just think this fight is absolutely fucking massive for both of them. I think Yair could easily go and fight for the title again. Why not? Because as Nathan pointed out, he's not been beat to no mugs. He's another one that's only been beat off the elite. So it's another it's probably the strongest and closest matchup on the card for me that I really am struggling to split. You know, I've got my views on others. I'm swaying towards each person in other matchups, but this one I really am sitting on the fence for this. As much as I want Pitbull to win, I must add.
I mean, it's just gonna be a great fight. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Alex does have a good point. Pitbull might just try and take it to the ground and hold him there. You know, he's skilled enough to do it. And Rodriguez got submitted in his last fight. You know, so it's not impossible that that's a route he looks to take. But yeah, it's going to be a great fight. I mean, I wish I could say the same about the card, the fight that's going to open the card. I mean, Dominic Reyes, Nikita Krylov, it's light heavyweight. It might not be the best. I mean, Dominic Reyes is always tends to be in fun fights. I can't say the same for Nikita Krylov, but I'm just hoping this Dominic Reyes sort of redemption arc continues, because 2 wins in a row for him after that heartbreaking defeat against John Jones. I mean, and then he went on that skid and you just thought, oh God, he's washed. This is not good. You know, after, you know, that almost John Jones effect, you have a close decision with John Jones. I actually think he won that fight still. And then you end up just absolutely dropping it, and you end up not any good. And so everyone could go, well, to be honest, this guy's rubbish anyway. It was just an off night for John, you know, so it's tough, but hopefully the redemption arc will continue with a win against Nikita Krylov.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
In an ideal, sorry, Alex, in an ideal world, because as you said, a lot of people, including yourself, still have Reyes winning that fight. You could watch it back and you could still call it to Reyes, as many people, as I said, as many people do. So the most ideal thing on Saturday is Reyes to come out, absolutely blitz this guy, make him look like an amateur, get on the mic and start calling for out whoever, whenever, getting his name out there again. He's 35 years of age. I'm the guy that beat John Jones, but wasn't given the decision. I want my title run. I want what should be mine. I'm just going for it. I'm 35. This is my last chance. It's his last chance, isn't it? It's now or never. Make this guy look like a little bitch on Saturday, and then go for a run at it. Grab the microphone and make it, because it's a big card as well. It's a huge card. This, so there's no doubt the likes of John Jones and everybody's going to be watching it. Everybody's going to be cage side. Why not? There's history. There's history there. You know, so I think personally that's what he should do, and I'd love for it. There's nothing more. I like it when a fighter gets on the microphone and starts giving it large afterwards, especially with someone that wasn't given the nod in one of the most controversial decisions of modern day history, if not of all time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think he's got a tall order though, beating Nikita Krylov. You mean the guy's had 2 years out of the cage, but you look at the guys that he's beat, right? So in his run in the UFC so far, he's beaten Alexander Gustafsson, he's beaten Ozdemir. His last fight was against Ryan Spann in 2023, which at the time Ryan Spann was on a pretty decent run. He lost to Paul Craig.
He'd beat Dominic Reyes, Ryan Spann on that run. And then Dominic Reyes had almost, he had 18 months out. Then he beat Dustin Jacobet and then Anthony Smith in December last year. Is that enough for this Krylov? But this Krylov's also been out of the cage for 2 years, so it's probably got the potential to be a stinking shit light heavyweight fight, to be,
fair play.
I'm bigging it up here like Reyes, come out, stick it on him. But I do like Reyes though. I'm not going to lie. I can't hide the fact. I can't lie. I like him. I think he was a bit done over in the John Jones fight. You know? If any other promotion, if that wasn't John Jones, he might have got the nod.
Oh yeah, definitely. They just use that bullshit excuse of you gotta beat the champ to take
You've
the
got to
belt,
rip the
something
belt
like
off.
that.
Yeah. You've
Yeah,
got to rip
but
the belt off the champion. But it's bullshit that if you fucking win the fight, you win the fight. This is what I mean. It's all about this subjective scoring. That's why I'm all for, if they can master AI, bringing it into it properly, then use the technology properly. You know, use it properly, because then you just won't be left to the subjective scoring. It's done by a system and a proper statistic basis. You know, but that's the main card covered. What I wanted to touch on before we leave it for tonight, boys, if the stars align for UK MMA fighters, Paddy, if he beats Chandler, Lerone has just beaten Josh Emmett, and if Tom Aspinall gets his undisputed fight against John Jones, we could have 3 undisputed champions by 2026. And they've all, bar Lerone, so they've all been on FCC, which is another great thing. I just want to point that out. They've all been full contact contender champions, so the graduates there, and Paddy and Tom from Cage Warriors. So where does the UK rank now, boys, in terms of level of world fighters with the likes of Dagestan, Brazil, USA, etc.? Where do you put us now, boys? Let's have our top 5.
I'll probably lean, without thinking about who sort of surrounds it, I think Dagestan is probably still top for me in terms of just like real quality of fighter. I mean, they've produced guys that aren't the best, but the general level is quite high out over there. It's an insane sort of, especially when you consider population and the amount of people in there. You know, USA, while they've produced, you know, loads of really good fights, also loads of shit ones. You know, so it's that balance between the both. USA bloody massive, so it's tough in the sense of where the UK ranks. I'd probably go 4th. I'm not really thinking about who's 5th in terms of the 4 countries you said. I'd still probably have UK at the bottom of that, because I'd probably actually go Brazil 2nd, I think. And then I would go America, USA 3rd, and UK 4th. And that, I can't think of another really like a region that would challenge us, so to speak, in regards to who would be above us, like out of the other countries, because generally there isn't really anyone that, even when I think of like Canada, bar, you know, GSP and maybe a couple other names, it's not, you know, it's not an absolute hive of incredible MMA fighters. Whereas UK, as we've seen now, you know, you can put a UFC card together and you stick a UK fighter in pretty much every fight, you know, and that says something at least to the development of the fighters. And then, you know, some of the biggest emerging stars of the sport are from the UK. I mean, Ireland would have maybe had a shout a few years ago, but that sort of petered out. So I would go UK 4th in those, amongst those. I'm not sure who's 5th.
What about you, Alex? What about, give us your top 5? You break yours down for us, mate. Where do you see us fitting in now? Because it's nice to see that we are in the mix with the elite guys, aren't we? I know that Nathan said the top level is Dagestan. I'd probably go with that, and then I'd probably agree with Brazil just behind as well in 2nd.
Well, to be honest, I'm going another way. I'm throwing USA number 1. I think they've got the most. I think they've got the most UFC champs ever. And I mean, MMA was pretty much born in America, and it's the, you know, it's a sport that we follow. The Americans fucking pioneered it. You know, the guys maybe weren't the best in the early days, and maybe a lot of them were just brawlers, but still, I mean, like, even in like the common day, you've still got guys like John Jones knocking about. You've still got well, half the people we just listed on that are American. You know.
In the sorry to interrupt you, pal. In the UFC now, there's 2 American champions, even though Bilal Muhammad don't like to class himself as American, even though he's probably never been to fucking Palestine. So he's still American. And John Jones. If you look at the rest, I think
they've had 58 in
Islam
total
and stuff like that. Yeah, but I know over time, but I'm talking right now.
Oh, right now.
Fighters. So we've got to say Dagestan number 1. Then you probably say Brazil number 2. They're just a level, and I think fighting Nurse Gym, I think they'll probably have 3 UFC champions in a few years. Just they're not very far behind. And Brazil's a mainstay. It's a foundation of a lot of mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, and a lot of other bases covered. So you've got to have Brazil there with Dagestan. Dagestan's all wrestling based. Brazil's not just jiu-jitsu based; they like to mix it up. It is a lot of different styles of fighting, and it's not just the styles in these places, boys. It's the climates and where the base, like in the mountains and on the beaches. Whereas England, we have a shed on an industrial estate. You know what I mean? Where the boys turn up with a fucking leggings on and fucking long johns and stuff like that. I think I agree with Nathan on Ireland as well a few years ago. I think in other promotions you could say like Paul Hughes and Will Flurry and Octagon and stuff like that, but it's solely in the elites of the UFC. So we'd have Dagestan, Brazil, third. I'd probably slot us in third right now just because we've just had Leon. And I think we've just got a massive rise. I think we've just got an influx, and over the next few years, we're going to see. I think, like I said, this time next year, if the stars align, we could have 3 undisputed UFC champions, and they'd all be from the north of England, boys, the northwest. Come
on.
Yeah, I think the thing is with the Dagestan thing, that's mainly a pop, like, because Dagestan is tiny. You know, that's the thing for me in terms of, you know, to produce the level of fighter they are able to produce in there. I mean, we could easily be having a conversation in a couple of years' time, you know, about Georgia being a real hotbed for MMA and having, you know, some of the best MMA fighters. They've got the best, you know, arguably one of the best ones, probably the second best MMA fighter just generally at the moment. And they're really producing guys that, you know, it's not quite. They got Merab as well. Yeah,
Merab, the most consistent champion of recent years, man.
So Georgia is genuinely probably the 5th in my head at the moment. But yeah, Dagestan and again that probably fits into the more population argument, because America is obviously they produce great fighters, but as you say, Alex, it's their sport. You know, it's their company. That it all runs out of America. Hence why probably the most accessible gyms and all of this stuff is there for them, you know. So I would say America. You can go, to be honest, you can go second or third for me. Like switch with Brazil. Again, Brazil have so many great fighters. Again, Carlos Prates, who unfortunately we're not going to see on Saturday. Charles Oliveira, Jose Aldo, probably a bit after now his time, but you know, a lot of great fighters. The UK is rising. I still don't think it breaks that top 3, but it's there. It's coming on the way there, and so guys like Tom Aspinall, I mean, these are big names, some of the best in their division, some of the best in the sport. So, you know, we're getting there. I don't know if we're going to see 3 UK champions by the end of this year, but I do hope that we'll see at least one. And the next year is slightly more possible. You know, I think you're looking at Tom Aspinall is the main contender. He'd be the one you're putting your money on, and you're sort of just hoping that Paddy Pimblett and Lerone Murphy could maybe get it done. And you never know, Leon Edwards might come back for more, but obviously he'll have a lot to work on before then.
Yeah, absolutely. The stars align, and there'll be more people that will be putting the name in for a title shot, i.e. Michael Venom Page, etc., etc. But this week it's been great to chat, boys, and I am really looking forward to this weekend. It's probably so far card of the year, isn't it? And in terms of depth and strength, especially on the main card.
Yeah, I'd agree. Oh, sorry, Nathan. It's probably the most fun card we've had all year. Every fight on the main card got potential banger on it. Even like some of the prelims, you look down at some of the prelims, you got Jim Miller and Chase Hooper. I reckon that's a banger of a fight.
That's got the potential to be decent. Yeah, that's got the potential to be decent. Yeah, I'm happy with it. I hope it's going to deliver. But everybody, don't forget, head over to Instagram, go and check out all our little interviews and clips there, and check out the bare knuckle stuff. Been getting a lot of different types of guests on, and I'm collaborating with a guy from Bare Knuckle News UK. He's got 10,000 followers on Facebook, and he's got a caravan setting, so we're going to be doing some podcasts in the caravan there with the bare knuckle fighters, which is going to be pretty cool. So don't forget to go and check out all that content. Like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Thank you very much, everybody.